Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the very first DreamHack ever in North America. We are very happy and very excited to bring you live coverage of the StarCraft 2 tournament that is happening in Austin, Texas. This is a big moment for DreamHack, a milestone event for them to be exploring in a different continent, and that is the player area, and we are very happy to be giving you the coverage of this tournament to see who will be the next DreamHack champion. 96 players started in this tournament, and we'll be boiling down to just 16 by the end of the day. I'm going to be your host over the next couple of days, as always, here at the StarCraft event, but before we start talking about that event, of course, the sponsors. A big shout out to Zowie, G2A, Razer, and Monster Energy, and of course, Alienware. And now that leads us to, of course, Twitter, which you should know and should have. Hashtag WCS and hashtag DHOpen across the weekend. We'll be looking at some tweets, answering some questions, and of course, reading throughout the weekend. Now, to my desk, I have, to my left-hand side, Nathanius, Total Biscuit, and in control to start the day off. Welcome to another DreamHack, and welcome to a DreamHack in America.
Allow me to welcome you guys as the Europeans finally coming to the greatest country. Nathanius.
Hang on a minute. No,
you lost the war, John. All right?
I don't recall it going that way, actually, Jeff. But
America stood its ground. We didn't want to pay those high taxes for your tea anymore. And now we've got Texas.
It's fair.
And now we got DreamHack.
You've got great barbecue, I'll give you that. I mean,
they do.
I did hear confirmation backstage, actually, that the reason that they decided to have this tournament here was because of the food.
The food has been pretty awesome so far.
Yes.
I've never been to Austin, been no real time in Texas, but so far, top tier.
I went to Dallas a few years ago for MLG, but Austin so far has been
and that's
fun.
what I like it. I like
awesome.
that we're redeeming with Austin because there's a story for Dallas, MLG. Rhett, a Team Liquid Zerg player. I love this story because Rhett, all Europeans are such friendly people. I'm going to generalize all of you. There's basically 150 of you. He gets off. He's walking the streets of Dallas. He did the typical European. He's like, I'd like to check out the city. So he's like walking around. A guy came up and says, hey, do you have a light for a cigarette? And Rhett's like, yeah, sure. Let me look through my wallet here with all these dollars. He's like, yeah, here's a lighter. And he's like, yeah, and I'll take your wallet. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I got a gun. I'm going to shoot you if you don't give me your wallet. So that was his introduction to Dallas. Austin, Texas, probably not going to happen unless you say something bad about the Longhorns, which in the last couple of years is super easy to do because they've been a crappy football team. But don't do that. It's okay. I'm behind this.
If you want to know where he is, he's backstage. So if you all rush at once, you should be able to get him.
This is going to be such a great event. I mean, we're going to have a lot of fun up here. Everyone's very excited to have a DreamHack in America. The players are excited to play. Nate, you're excited. You've said a lot already today.
Yeah, you know,
he looks thrilled.
Roddy, you know, I'm so sad he's not here on the desk with us to start things off, but we had the fun conversation, and I'm sure you can relate, Jeff. A lot of these guys that played in the first stage, that have moved on to the second stage, are also the guys that beat the crap out of us on the ladder. They take our points every day. And
we take some of their points, though, which is what I like.
And now we get to sarcastically cast them going up against the people that were seeded into Stage 2.
Oh, I know.
Revenge is sweet. But, you know, I also like being able to see American players that I can kind of be like, yeah, I kind of know this guy.
I love this feel. I love that we have, because it's kind of it was an unproven question. Can you go to America, hold a LAN event, and have it be successful? And I think DreamHack, at least in Austin, Texas, has said, yes, you can. They sold out. There's a lot of people here.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. It really does have that feel of 2012-11 area.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Because we're covering the StarCraft tournament for all you guys at home, but there's so many other tournaments going on. There's multiple different games. I think there's 6, 7 other tournaments going on at the same time. So tons of people. The LAN itself, the Bring Your Own Computer has 2,000 people that sold out instantly, so a big success.
It's just so good to see Counter-Strike at another tournament. I mean, that game's been, for a while,
it needed a lot more exposure, I feel, than it has. But I'm glad that you're joining us here on the best game with the best stream. And we will be bringing you a fantastic tournament. $16,000 on the line for first place today, as well as a whole bevy of WCS circuit points available for all of our players here.
Yeah, so a big tournament joining the circuit for the rest of the year as players do find themselves on the way to the global players. But we do have another guy who's joined us for this tournament. I've got a little toy, a little prop with him. It is Chobra.
That's actual size, by the way.
This is actual size Chobra. We're going to keep him on the
dimensions brilliantly.
We like to call him Chibi Chobra.
Chibi Chobra. But he's actually here. He's somewhere around there. He's going to be doing Winner's interview. We can pass over to him now. Chobra, how are you doing?
Thank you very much, Sean. Yep, excellent dimensions. I've been working on my data a little bit. I'm glad they could capture that perfectly. The other thing I learned is the next time I'm on the desk, I'm going to make sure I don't talk too long because it's actually not that easy to be waiting here listening to Sean talk all day. And, he's not really saying much. He's just going through the motions. But it's great to be here. My first time at a DreamHack, not first time in Austin, but first time in Austin for eSports. And like the guys at the desk were saying, it's great to see everyone showing up here. It's been great just running through the crowd, people playing. We already saw the Group 1 people already playing, and now we're going to go on to the next matches. The first one already on stage. Maybe you can get a look. I'm not sure. Maybe if I move out of the way. But you see a little someone on there on stage. I don't know if I can mention the exact matchup because I don't know if that's supposed to be a little bit of a teaser. But everyone here already knows. You guys are laughing at it because you guys are like, no, he can definitely say it. But I'm not going to say it. I'm going to stick to my gun. So I'll be coming back after every match talking to the winners for winner interviews. And that's where you'll see me. We'll go back to Sean and the boys over at the desk.
Man, Chober did take forever to get through that.
He did. That took a long time.
It's been a while.
Slow it down.
He's a bit rusty. We'll give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
Has anyone seen Snakes?
He's been doing the CSGO stuff, and I understand they move at a much slower clip than StarCraft.
No doubt about that.
Very slow.
Let's talk a little bit about the tournament format then. So 96 players entered this tournament. We've already boiled it down to 64s. The first group stage has completed just a little bit earlier on today. So the tournament format with 64 players remaining. We have a group stage which is playing out now, or will do in a couple of moments. And then once we complete that group stage, we'll be into a 32-player bracket. Single elimination, all games being a best of 5, all the way through, of course, to the final day, which will have our champion. Here you can see on screen, Group Stage 1 completed. Group Stage 2 begins now. And then the playoffs over the next couple of days, starting this evening.
And really cool names in that open bracket. The full player list was released. If you're not familiar with it, go to the StarCraft 2 subreddit, go to Team Liquid to check those places. But some Chinese players came over, Petit Drogo, Chasing Redemption. He had a couple of disappointing terms for him. He still plays for it okay, but he wants to do better. And then what I like about having a DreamHack here is you almost forget that DreamHack events are kind of LAN events. Like in Europe, it's constantly an open bracket, and a lot of those guys were just kind of like, oh, they're always there. Yeah, it's because it's easy to travel over there, but a lot of the American players here we don't get to see on stages that we will see, and I'm excited about it. I'm thinking about players like your Jon Snow, a guy that we've seen in WCS, but outside of that, no, not really. He's a very good Zerg player. We're going to... Hopefully, there's some dark horse stories that develop here because that's the gem of the bracket. I love it.
It's a really awesome opportunity for these guys. They don't really get to do that all that often anymore. The American scene, certainly for StarCraft 2, has not so much struggled over the past few years, but it just hasn't had as many events as Europe. Europe is incredibly strong with DreamHack, with ESL events as well going on over there, and plenty of local LAN events. You don't really get that in the States. So you have the guys that used to turn up to the old MLGs, MLG Dallas, or all those kind of classic tournaments that we remember from Wings of Liberty. They're still here. We're going to have what is basically a throwback match coming up very, very soon between two players that everyone should know very well.
Absolutely. And I know you would have loved to have signed up to this. Nate is playing this tournament. You've got to cast it instead.
I would have gone for the chance of my revenge. The rules don't allow me to cast while playing somehow.
He's training for his latest career in Clash Royale. So
exactly.
That's basically what you do at home.
These guys just have cards I don't have. There's nothing I can really do.
Yeah, okay, that's a great excuse. Well done.
But to what you said, John, is the first match. It is quite a throwback. To be fair. As you may have caught a bit of a glimpse on stage, it is going to be NonY versus Suppy. A match that we saw years and years ago.
Yes, and I'm super thrilled about this. NonY was on Team Liquid. He kind of went his own way, but he's still been playing StarCraft. He is one of those guys that is a workhorse practice player. Like, he will actually, and I always talk about this whenever I broadcast a NonY match, but back in Brood War, he would actually even just play games over games about where he's putting his pylon. Literally the most boring crap ever, but he would do that. And then Suppy's been doing CSL stuff. He has been busy becoming a doctor, at Berkeley, whatever, Cal Burke. But he's still playing StarCraft. So it is a throwback match. Certainly, I think it has to be said. I'm not going to pretend like both these guys are in peak form. No, they're not. But these are former pros that have been playing for a long time, and they are in decent enough form that it's going to be an awesome match. I'm excited for it.
It'll be a veteran match, and that's always fun to watch because what you bring into the table is maybe not the highest speed, but you bring a lot of experience. You're bringing creative builds. You're bringing an in-depth knowledge of the other player because these guys have gone at it so much over the last 6 years.
What are your thoughts here, Nate, on this match?
I
mean, as a Terran player, I understand.
They talk about a veteran match. These guys started before I was really even involved in this stuff. I miss the highlights of NonY's career. I don't personally don't. I couldn't tell you what his achievements are. I haven't been able to ever watch him play. I'm just interested in that alone.
It's going to be fun.
It'll be fun. So we'll be getting that in a couple of minutes. It's still just a couple of moments away. But this is going to be the first game of this next group stage that we're in, or the first group stage for the broadcast before moving into the bracket. Both of these players have, a good shot at moving through this group through to the bracket stage. But that's where it gets very difficult because they've been now, or at least come through the first group stage to be seeded with the pro players that have obviously traveled from Europe, the Americans that we do have as well. And the bracket's going to be where it gets interesting.
Yep.
Do you see, they should perhaps advance from this group stage and then find it difficult once they enter the bracket, I assume?
Without looking at their group, because there actually are some pretty darn good players out there that aren't necessarily the names that would be household names. And maybe when we get some graphics, we can take a look at it or see the players. But absolutely, they should advance just off the top of my head, looking at the groups, or the bracket rather. But after that, you said it. There's actually some... this is one of those, again, opportunities for these players who we keep talking about being very good to really prove it. State has gone off to Korea. He's one of the better North American Protoss players. He's come back for this event. He has not necessarily had the most incredible offline event records, and that's kind of, this is another opportunity, and a better one, by the way. This is not riddled with 25 Koreans. There's just a few out there, and a few top-notch non-Koreans. And then, of course, you can't go too far in a tournament like this without mentioning Neeb. Neeb has been the absolute North American hope. He's a young guy. He's been crushing it. He has been beating Koreans. So it's like, hey, you got to put a tournament under your belt. That's when in StarCraft we have a very high standard for what's good and what's bad. Placing top 5 is like impressive, but until you win something, you're actually like nothing. It's really brutal. So Neeb's got to do it.
Does it, back on like NonY here, does it kind of feel, a bit nostalgic? Does it make you want to play again? Because I mean, you've competed with him and throughout the years.
It does. I'm in a different place right now. Like I'm not playing StarCraft 10 hours a day, but I do like. I actually did a preview of all the players. I'm looking through this. I'm like, dang, dude, this is my daily. These are the guys I play.
These guys you run into on ladder just on a consistent basis.
Yeah, they're all here. And I mean, of course, and let's be real. It would be fun to play, but I would lose to the first really good player I hit up against. But yeah, and I think that's what's so cool about this. Nate and Roddy too. Like these are guys that they hit them as well, and it's kind of fun to have an event like this where we do play with these guys and we can talk about them and have some experience with them and give those guys also the attention that they deserve. They've been working hard. A lot of these guys are not collecting huge salaries, but they're grinding out the games, trying to get to a point where they can. And I'll tell you what, DreamHack Austin, do a good job here, beat a couple of top-notch players, get on that big stage, and that's how like dreams can come true. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool for them to get the opportunity to come here as well, simply because this is going to be the flagship event for North America over the next few months, and it's going to be great for them to get off the ladder, get off their streams, and actually onto a live stage, because it is different. We talk about the idea of the ladder hero, and a lot of these guys, they're great on ladder. We know they're great. You can see they're in the top 10, top 20, but can they compete on the live stage? Can they make it count when it matters? Because they're now in Group 2, and if you don't know much about the DreamHack format, you get a couple of chances. You often get seeded into the second stage if you happen to be a well-known or accomplished player, and you will get a shot. You can go through in second place, but that's when your chances end. At that point, it's all or nothing. You've got to win.
All right, so, I mean, we talk a little bit about predictions as we get ourselves ready for this first one. I mean, is it easy to do predictions for this one, or is it a bit of a...
I don't think so.
Coin flip, really.
Nah, no idea.
I've played Suppy a few times on the ladder, and he does come from probably, let me check my words real. I think it is the greatest esports team of all time. I think I'm pretty well to say that evil geniuses. So of course I do think Suppy is going to take this one home. But NonY is one of those like anomalous players where he could be coming into this having practiced 10 hours a day, or it could be like, no, I played 2 hours. We don't know, and we're going to find out in a few seconds.
It's hard to know with him, certainly, and particularly as a Protoss, he has some very creative builds up his sleeve, and we may very well see that. But Suppy's rock solid. He's a great macro player. He's going to be the guy who's not going to go down to an easy cheese or anything along those lines. So it'll be an interesting match, certainly.
I would expect Suppy to be in a bit more competitive form since he has been competing and made it to the finals, I believe, of both the CSL tournament that's having their finals here and the TESPA Collegiate Series, which is also having their finals here. So he's certainly been playing for more lately, but like Jeff said, I don't know enough about NonY or what his practice regimen is to say if he's going to be prepared or even in shape to play this.
And John brought up a good point. Like NonY throughout his history, by the way, he... especially in Brood War, he was more of like, that was his highest skill level, I think he's ever, and he would probably say the same thing. But he became a player that was more timing attack oriented. Like we see Suppy here on screen with this sweater from circa 5 years ago, which is nice. It's strangely... Oh, okay, I thought it said he was 6'7", but it says 67%. Never mind. Anyways, NonY is a timing attack kind of guy, which, by the way, gives him a chance to beat anybody. So it could be Suppy here, or it could be Hydra sitting right there, and NonY would actually have a puncher's chance against him just because of his player style. But as Totobiscuit said, Suppy, a good macro player. Listening to what we're saying right here, too, he's also just gorgeously handsome. Fantastic skin. Yeah, there you go.
That smile.
He got a haircut for this event.
This is a man that exfoliates, ladies and gentlemen.
He exfoliates. But you know what, ladies? I know what you're thinking. He's a taken man.
He
has a girlfriend, so back off. Boys, have at it. And then there's Tyler, ruggedly handsome. Nothing I could say would make him smile at all. Put on the headphones just in case.
He doesn't want to risk breaking his composure here. This is generally a tactic used to intimidate his opponent by never looking happy about anything in the world.
Tyler with a chiseled jaw, six-pack. God dang it. All right.
Jason Statham look.
He is. Yeah, it's modeled off of that. But no, like I said, what Tyler's probably doing, by the way, is like shaking his hands, something like that. Class act. Two really good guys. And by the way, I've played both these guys over the years. Like, that's what's so fun about this. It's very nostalgic. And there you guys are. Ruggedly handsome and awesome as well. Thank you for showing up.
Totobiscuit's getting ready to rile them all up.
Rile them all up, yeah. We'll see what we can do about that.
Wrestle Jimmys?
I mean, we could do that, absolutely. We could talk a little bit about Hearthstone and my latest deck creation, but I think we'd prefer to talk about StarCraft at this point. That looks like a rileable crowd. It's a Texas crowd. Texas crowds tend to be a little bit rowdy. I saw some concern on the forums that they wouldn't be able to equal something a Polish crowd, for instance, and I'm sure they're going to try and prove me wrong during this series.
Yeah, it's going to be good to have you back casting this event.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see if I can remember the names of the units.
In control, you're going to be casting with Totobiscuit for this first match as well.
Yes.
So I'm sure you're quite happy.
That'll be fun.
Happy
Actually, the last time, was that your last event? What did you say?
It was a while ago. I can't quite remember which one it was, honestly. I do remember a certain match between a certain bomber and a certain Gosu user that got a little bit silly.
If it happens again, then we have to talk about
which event was
charging for
that was an MLG,
Dude.
man.
Yeah.
That was quite the match, that one. That was a classic. That one keeps getting brought up, I noticed, because it was that silly.
Bomber targeted his own medevac with a seeker missile.
And then drove it into the Zerg. It was just a wonderful thing to watch.
Stuff of legends.
It was. It really was.
And Roddy will be also joining us a little bit later on. I don't
Roddy's
know where
here.
he is at
He's
the
sobering
moment.
up somewhere. We're trying to. Shobra's eating a plate of pasta just off camera.
He is, and he seems really happy about it
You
as
guys
well.
get the inside scoop here.
This is
a lot of important information. And we're not filling for time or anything. Absolutely not. We wouldn't do something like that.
I mean, the players are definitely waiting for us to finish talking.
Oh, are they?
Well, that's never going to happen. So
that's right. TV magic.
DreamHack a little bit more casual than your sort of average event, which is why none of you bothered to bring a suit jacket.
I know.
I feel a little overdressed for this. I do have my script tie, though. I think and I'm kind of repping Zerg today.
You've got your GSTL badge as well.
I do. My GSTL Campion. They
probably worth more.
I've got to say, GOM TV were never great on the spelling department, but yeah, I think it probably is the only one that's like that. It's nice. Yeah.
That's what I mean. 10 years.
I mean, to be fair, we will never ever be beaten in the GSTL because it no longer exists. So.
Reigning champions.
Indeed, reigning forever.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun to see which player does come out throughout the weekend, I suppose. It's kind of difficult to pick
who are we rooting
straight
for?
out winner.
There's someone in every corner here. I mean, Sean, even you as the host, who are you rooting for?
I'd go for the very straight obvious pick and think, Pult's going to win. I think when Pult practices and Pult enters these tournaments, and it's always the same story with Pult, you overlook him and then you say he's not going to get as far as he does, and then he does it anyway. So my simple answer is the Pult.
I know he went to school in Atlanta, but didn't he also start off at Austin, Texas?
That's a great question.
Someone know? You should know his
I don't creep on Pult enough.
You don't creep on him?
I don't creep on him enough.
No.
All right.
Who do you think is going to do very well in this tournament?
I am super, super, super hopeful that this will be the breakout performance for Neeb to get to the end.
It would be awesome, yeah.
When I think about tournaments like this and all of the other ones that we cast like this, it seems that the #1 problem for the guys that can actually beat the Koreans, when I think about guys like Snoot, guys like Bunny, they make those upset matches, but they have the hardest time playing against the guys that they hit on ladder all the time, So playing in NA, I know Neeb plays a lot of EU server for practice.
Yeah.
I don't think there's as many non-Korean players that can threaten him, and I believe he has what it takes to beat Pult, to beat Hydra. He destroyed both of them to qualify for WCS events this month, and he's the guy that I want to get in the corner of. Now that he's finally had a few events this year to actually be warmed up, and he should have the confidence. I don't think he should have the stage fright. I want it to be his tournament.
I'd like to see State do well in this event, you know, particularly coming back from Korea. There's always this mythical idea that if you go to Korea, you're suddenly going to become 3 tiers better just by even being in the presence of these guys. But we now have this interesting situation where there is this divide now. The Koreans are pretty much landlocked over there for the most part, and now we have an American, Canadian, and of course the European scene sort of interacting a little bit with a couple of the guys who did move over on a more permanent basis. So I think it would be great to see State do that. You know, he almost won, I recall, you know, one of the big American tournaments that we did back in the day was Shoutcraft America, of course. He was second place in that, unfortunately losing to Kane. And he has shown he's got incredible ability, but he does seem to have that stage fright issue. You know, he has been known to tilt a little bit in tournaments.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not the same as playing ladder. It never will be. It's a different skill set. And this is why I think, you know, veterans like NonY, veterans like Suppy may very well have the edge as well. I know, and I'd certainly love to see, you know, an American or European win here. That would be great.
I agree across the board on the sentiments. Like, I would really love for a State, a Neeb. There is players like Bales and Puck in the audience as well. They're also kind of
always
doing
wild
better.
cards. You know, Puck in particular can come out of nowhere at these events.
And it's been a long time since we've had a true kind of this American player is a threat. You know, I think back to like your Idras, and Huck barely claims America, but we can say Huck as well. He's more of a Canadian guy there. These were guys that went to the biggest of the big tournaments and actually took it down. And since then, it's been rough. There's been some Scarlet appearances. But all of a sudden, I feel like, especially this format, we have a chance for a player like a Neeb to collect $16,000 in a weekend.
Not a bad little paycheck for one guy, right? You know, this is not a team-based esport. He is taking all of that, and that doesn't go to anybody else. So that's a nice little payoff for a weekend's work.
And after taxes, it's like $1,200 too, which is like, I mean, that's like 3 cab rides in New York where he's from. So it's just fantastic. So if I had to key in a player that's like those that I'm kind of rooting for, but I'd love to see the final 8 bracket include a true dark horse. And again, I was saying names like a Jon Snow, but also kind of to throw. I think this is a dark horse, but we've seen his name in big stages. I really like Haz, man. Haz is a very funny Protoss player.
Haz is hilarious for, if you're a Terran or a Zerg player, he's hilarious for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
This is a guy that you could call, you know, someone who was generous would call him an innovator. Someone who was not generous would call him the cheesiest man in existence.
Yeah, absolutely.
He comes up with the most interesting cheese. You know, he has the best cheese, or the worst cheese, whichever your perspective.
Yeah, like the first one you can tell is like, wow, that's a really well-designed cheese. But then when he adds cheese after that, it's like, you're just like, I'm in awe of your guts. You flew from China, you know, Eastern Asia to here, and you're willing to just Cannon Rush, followed by Dark Templar, followed by Mass Void Ray Proxy, followed by whatever. He'll do it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't care.
The most impressive part about him is that you keep telling yourself at some point, oh, okay, well, this is where he has to go do something else. It's like, no, you are wrong. There is no limit. Players like that, of course, are interesting. And I guess it should be mentioned, of course, Polk comes into this after signing to a new team now on MVUS. So, I mean, he has to be coming in here wanting to put up a big performance for his new sponsor. He did a really good job for his previous one. Doesn't have that badass jacket, though.
That is
the source
true.
of his power.
You feel that's going to be a disadvantage going into this tournament?
I strongly feel if he plays this tournament in a T-shirt or any sort of normal loose jersey, he's going to have a hard time.
But Envy is a huge team, making waves in all of esports. They actually just recently were talking about putting together a facility in North Carolina to train their players and have them perform in front of live audiences. Like, it's a pretty big deal, actually, and Envy is at the forefront of that. So,
surprised not to see more team houses in North Carolina. It literally costs about $4.50 to buy a giant house over there, so I would highly recommend it, certainly.
A castle.
You know, but just ignore what the local government's doing right now. Let's not talk about that. But other than that, you know, it's great. It's green. We've got Bojangles.
Yeah, it's
a cat, I think.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of highlight on the American players, but there's some very strong European players coming here too.
Yeah, you just definitely don't want to mess with them. You know, I mean, we talked earlier about the land culture in Europe, and it gives them a great practice environment. It gives them a lot of experience in this, which some of the Americans may lack, certainly. But we will see how it goes as we progress through the bracket.
I like, there's a couple of obscure Europeans too that you don't hear very often, but made the trip and are actually very, very good. I'm thinking, of course, I'm going to blank on a few of the names, but Guru comes to mind as well, actually. Someone that performs very well in the ladder, has been making splashes at WCS, but hasn't had
it's his first big
that
event,
big thing.
So
and here he is in Austin, Texas, of all places. And there's a couple players like that.
Yeah, it seems like every week, suddenly out of nowhere, this new European, it's like, oh, yeah, the European, he's just been beating everybody. It's like, who's this guy? We never saw him before.
Those European Zergs seem to be doing really well.
That's been a theme for the last 6 years. You know, I don't think that's ever going to end.
God, I can't imagine why.
Having spoke to some of them, though, they are a little bit worried about jet lag, though.
Oh, what a weird thing for them to deal with. Isn't that weird?
I know. They are a little bit worried about it. Obviously, flying in yesterday, the day before, and playing so late in the evening is super, super early over there for them.
Dude,
or
somewhere out
late,
there is White Raw with a beer on his belly, his shirt halfway up, legs is just like weak, you know, because White Raw flew from well, not flew. That's half his travel was train, boat, car, and then an airplane.
Yeah.
35 hours later, probably pulled the train. He shows up, and I remember MLG. He had one where he lost like round 2, and then played until 2 a.m. that night. 9 rounds later, in the most brutal MLG format. Like those guys, thank God they did what they did because it was amazing. It helped esports so good, but they also were evil what they made players do. And White Raw at 2 a.m. lost on like the 5th game to then play to the next day.
Absolutely brutal.
But the crowd almost hoisted him up on their shoulder. He was a hero that day, so it's really cool. But that's where I'm laughing because these European players are like, man, I'm just slightly tired. It's hard to play StarCraft under jet lag.
It certainly is.
Everyone else is like, yes, it is.
Well, I have some good news for you.
Are we gonna play?
We are ready to start the first game now of the DreamHack tournament here in Austin. As both players have issues resolved, NonY versus Suppy. Your casters for this one in Control and Total Biscuit.
Thank you very much, Apollo. And here we are. The first game, ladies and gentlemen, the main stream of DreamHack Austin 2016. That is not how you pronounce that under any circumstances. It is my pleasure to introduce to you to the north position here on Dust Towers in the red trunks playing Protoss. It is NonY.
That's a smile.
I don't believe you. I think he's faking it.
Well, maybe he saw someone else do it.
And of course to the south position in the blue trunks playing Zerg from the self-proclaimed best esports team in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Suppy.
We're going to start off on one of the more standard maps, if not the most standard map, just to, both players know exactly where their opponent is. A very macro-based map. We can see NonY scouting forward here, getting that early probe scout. This is something that a lot of Protoss players have kind of abandoned because a lot of the Zerg openings are fairly formal, but also you're trying to cut those corners. Gone are the days of Nexus first, he says, as he goes Nexus first. Gone are the days of Cannon Rush. Oh, no, it's not Nexus first. There we go.
We're Legacy of the Void now, Jeff. Remember,
it's
you
Legacy
can get
of the
stuff
Void.
out much, much quicker, which is always nice to get things on. I had to shorten my intros up a little bit, though. It used to be the case of, well, you got to fill for 4 minutes before something else happens. That's no longer the case in Legacy, which is interesting to see. What do you think to the fact that Suppy certainly did not try 3-hatch on this when he has that option of a pocket expansion? You think he's a little bit worried about Protoss nonsense in a potential block or pylon block or anything along those lines?
I think he would have been, but his opening actually kind of goes before that even. I think if he was lining up to do a 3-hatch before pool opening, it'd be really problematic the second that probe shows itself. But Zerg players these days typically like to go gas first or gas early because they are the ones that dictate the pace. Zergling all-ins, quick drops, Banelings are making more play now than ever before. It's been really nice, and I actually think to add my own opinion to this almost, I prefer it because when Protoss dictated the pace, it felt like a lot of Zergs died cheaply. Now it feels like the game is hard-earned almost in this matchup.
I think that's Legacy of the Void in a nutshell, isn't it? I think a lot of people were worried that the increase in the number of workers that you got from the start would lead to more cheese. It actually does lead to less, I think, because you have more money earlier on, you have more resources to play with, that means you have more options. So as opposed to being limited to only having to commit to a singular path that may be the wrong one and having to do so blind, I think you've got a bit more flexibility. And speaking of flexibility, one of the most flexible units you can get right there, the Adept. Excellent for scouting, excellent for early game harassment. Just a great early investment for Protoss.
Exactly, and that's exactly how NonY's going to use this right now. It's going to come over here in phase form into the base and kind of take a gander at what's going on. If it saw like 25,000 Zerglings right now, of course the red sirens would be blaring. He'd have to start doing something. But on this map too in particular, it's worth noting, we keep seeing NonY's wall in there from our amazing observer flow. It's really hard to cheese up that ramp. You're going to have a sentry behind it probably. Lings aren't going to reliably get up there. So if you do, like you said, kind of go the cheesy route and say, okay, well, I'm going to go fast drop or something like that. That is that one pathway where if that doesn't work, you're infinitely behind. And We were kind of talking about this in the pregame. Suppy's more of a macro player, so I think we're going to see more of that kind of stuff.
NonY committing here with the Adept this time around. You notice the first time he did not get a scout on that third hatchery. He could kind of expect it, as you were mentioning. There was no big swell of Zerglings. He didn't see a Baneling nest or even an early Roach Warren. So he's thinking, all right, okay, he's probably going for the third hatch. Now he confirms it and gets to walk behind here. But that's a nice surround there. There's the catch. And we're going to see first big kill here for the Zerg play. Getting that Adept out of the way early is nice. It's unfortunate for NonY that got caught.
And I love this upgrade out from Suppy here as well. Suppy is going very macro heavy, as we point out. That one Adept could have done more damage, but as you put it out, TotalBiscuit, a good surround there. But the speed overload is going to reveal absolutely everything, short of, I don't know, 5 Stalkers. It would seem very out of place at this point in time, or a Stargate Tech, which is really hard to do while taking a third right now. There's no way to stop it, really. So it's going to see everything. And NonY has to kind of know, all right, he saw everything, but as time goes on, that becomes even more bothersome. Protoss eventually do need to commit to a tech path, and we can see that here with the Twilight Council. It's probably going to be like Adept attack, or maybe Blink Stalkers. Yeah,
it seems like NonY's spending as much time as possible not committing to something, but there's like the first big commitment that says, this is the unit that I'm probably going to mass in some way. And that is, of course, the Adept Tech there. And we also see a pretty early +2 coming out, so you were mentioning earlier this idea that NonY was very much a timing-focused player. Well, you know, a +2 timing attack with an upgrade like that and a couple of Immortals, that's a damn timing, all right.
It is, and he actually has it lined up that it's a little bit behind the +1 melee attack for our Zerg player Suppy, which means he's not going to have much in the way of armor. And there's one of the first kind of really cool...
over there. And the thing with this particular build is it's incredibly strong against ground units with the upgraded Adepts and the Immortals, but it's
almost the fake. It's like, hey, would you move if I showed up? He's getting the intel right now that the answer is no. Well, the next Overlord's going to have more to it.
The majority of his units are over there. And the thing with this particular build is it's incredibly strong against ground units with upgraded Adepts and the Immortals, but it's not much for shooting down Immortals and shooting down Overlords, unfortunately. So the air attack may very well be effective. NonY is suspicious at this point. He went after it, but that was a bait. You saw he draws away the anti-air. Down come the Baneys. We're going to see a split. The split goes off, and not too much damage there. There's the photon overcharge, and he was just quick enough. He looked a little slow on the uptake there, but he's going to get out of there.
You could see the Protoss gears churning where he's like, all right. Because at first he didn't move the Harvesters. He didn't move at all, but he's like, you're going straight to the mineral line, and then you stopped, and that's just too obvious. So NonY, that veteran player, gets away from that unscathed. And we can kind of see, again, that timing attack stuff taking shape here. No gases at the third. He is powering forward with his upgrades, and he's amassing quite a sizable army. We're going to have a kind of repeat performance as Suppy's going to try to sneak in with the Econ attack.
It's a good time as well to do that. The photon cannon is not up. The army just left. There is, of course, a possibility of a photon overcharge. And he sort of jukes towards the natural there, and then he's actually going to go in here instead. But he got baited over the pylon, and unfortunately that Overlord's going to go down. The Banelings pop and do absolutely nothing. In the meantime, you've got to be concerned about the size of Suppy's army, but he just had 23 Banelings in there. He's going for this continued harassment. I have to wonder if this is a good idea with a big push coming across the map here.
Well, it's going to all come down to this. The Banelings by themselves are not enough. Hydralisks are starting to come out. NonY is either hitting the best timing in the world or the worst. He doesn't quite have the force fields up there, though. He needs to be very careful. He's on creep, and these are speed Banelings are coming in, trying to wrap around. Suppy does disengage, and I think he's going to make the choice that says, okay, you can have that fourth base. I don't have it saturated. Doesn't really mean that much to me right now, and that's probably the right call.
Oh, here comes Baneling drop and a quick split from NonY. He's paying attention to both his defense and offense here, which is great. You see a surge of gateways coming in to continue this aggression. The Warp Prism is in place, and Suppy is looking to get this position, get the surround. There are some sentries. There's not a lot of sentries in that army. He might be able to do it, but the forces are pretty good. Can he get around the side? He goes for the surround. He is able to get in there, but he is just able to crush the majority of that army. The Hydra DPS from the back really helped out a lot there, despite the fact that the Banelings did take a long time to get in. But he's able to crush it, and now a significant army supply difference between Suppy and NonY, though I do have to be a bit concerned about the long-term implications of losing that fourth there for the Zerg.
Well, it's going to be interesting because Suppy's put in a weird spot right here. He scored a huge hit killing that army, and if a Protoss ever loses their army, they have a very tough time getting back up the important units there. So does he add the fourth and kind of go behind this? Yes, in fact, he double expands behind this. But he also could have, John, just piled on the units and gone for the kill. That being said, if that attack doesn't work, then he's in a lot of trouble. But he's going to kind of do both here. He pushes forward, sees a fourth base is being attempted, and NonY has a massive number of adepts here and I believe Suppy caught with his hand.
Absolutely brutal. I'm actually kind of surprised that Suppy, having seen the upgraded adepts, decide to push with mostly Hydralisks. They get absolutely shredded by upgraded adepts, and now we see it swing back in the favor. And this is going to be +3 here, pretty early for the Protoss. A few mutas out, which is a nice choice. So Stalker Warpin's going to clear that up pretty easily. Baneling drop again. NonY is on top of this. Like he's losing a couple, but that's actually not a bad trade. Baneling's having a crash into the army as he's paying attention to that, but there's not enough here for the Zerg.
And he's going to once again perhaps lose this 4th base. This time he has the luxury of perhaps just canceling it, but we have to go back to that attack that you talked about. He saw the well-upgraded adepts and pushed forward into it anyways, while double expanding behind that. StarCraft is way too beautiful of a game to try and do all those things against a top-notch player like NonY and get away with it. Now here comes the drone pull, and this is kind of the white flag of like, yeah, I'm going to go down to the fight, but this is not going to be good.
No, it's not. And he did the smart thing, fighting under the Overlords to try and screw with the auto attack of the Stalkers there, but NonY focuses in nice and easy. Blinks under. That's the GG, ladies and gentlemen. NonY picks up the first victory in this best-of-3 series in Group 2 of DreamHack Austin 2016. Good, strong start there for NonY, and it looked like he was on top of everything. His defense was rock solid. He didn't lose anything really to those repeated drop attempts. And while he took a couple of hits on the front line, it didn't matter. You know, he had +3. He had the units he needed, and maybe a little bit impetuous there from Suppy to try and push with that almost pure Hydra force.
Oh no, I mean, and it's interesting too because it's easy to be critical of Suppy and be like, that was the wrong call, and I think he would tell you as well, but he did kill. He actually wiped the Protoss army, and in so many games, that's just lights out.
Yeah, because then you just go across the map counterattack.
Yeah, but as you pointed out, and this is a great point, those adepts are so well upgraded. They're actually, they're a soft counter to Hydralisks. You don't necessarily want to just rely on them, especially if Banelings are added to the mix. But at that point in time, Suppy's army was pretty cheap, and those adepts were the right answer. And with him double expanding behind that and also going to Mutatech, it's worth mentioning, Suppy was doing way too many things at one point in time, and it was just not good enough.
You see the surround right here, and the force fields were good. Now, some of the Banelings did get in there, you know, and what was really key there was not really the Baneling detonations, but the Hydras behind. Notice how the Hydras got completely untouched here, and they're able to just sit there throwing DPS out. Even though they were unupgraded, they still decimated that army. And it was interesting to see the fact that with a low sentry count, we didn't see the Guardian Shields go up to reduce the damage against the Hydras, which may have tilted the balance in favor of NonY. But
then more Banelings are hitting.
Yeah, of course, exactly. You know, it's a tough decision when you only have 4 sentries in that composition. Which do you want to choose? You don't have enough mana for both. And that timing was very critically dependent on the upgrade. So he couldn't have waited for full mana on all the sentries.
Which in a funny way is kind of crazy, because not to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but like because he only had 4 sentries, he was actually able to rebuild his army like cheaply. It was actually more okay that he lost that army. A lot of Protoss armies at that point in time would have your 8 sentries, excuse me. And if you lose 8 sentries while not mining gas at your 3rd, it's dead. I mean, yeah, you're going to have half as many adepts back at home, maybe 1 immortal, but that army's just not that impressive. And that ended up being the kind of telltale case there.
Yeah, that is very true. All right, ladies and gentlemen, map 2 of this best-of-3 series between these two phenomenal players. We're going to be kicking it off here on Arena, and our first player currently up 1 game in this best-of-3 series in Group 2 in the Red Trucks playing Protoss. It is NonY! Versus his opponent in the blue. Playing Zerg, currently playing from behind, looking to equalize here. It is the one and only EG Suppy. Suppy fans in the audience right there.
Yeah, there they are.
That looks like a Gamma Bears logo right there. That's not the Gamma Bears logo.
I think it's Cal Berkeley Bears, man.
That's phenomenal. I'm glad to see another bear logo in StarCraft 2. You know, once that
we need it.
Yeah, once that team was disbanded, it was a very unfortunate situation that we lost that, but it's awesome to see them back. It's great to see them representing in the audience, supporting, of course, their teammate. And he's going to need everything he can get because NonY was looking solid throughout that game. Like, I didn't see too many gaps in the armor in that particular build. And if he'd messed up on his defense, maybe, but the harassment-heavy style of Suppy in that game didn't pay dividends, not at all.
No, NonY looked really sharp. He took minimal damage from those Banelings, and you're going to take some damage, by the way. It takes inhuman reactions, Hiko, to try and pull back and take absolutely no damage, but he was very much so close to that. Suppy was the one who showed moments of brilliance. Like, I liked his army composition. I love the Baneling style. He remained committed to it, by the way. He had the first couple attempts kind of, yield 0 results, a lot of players would be like, all right, well, I'm never doing that again. But the nice thing about that style is it really doesn't need to connect 3 times. If you drop 4 banelings on a mineral line that hasn't moved and you kill 12 probes, that's actually mega devastating to a Protoss player.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll swing the economy in your favor. It was interesting to see Suppy play a more harassment-heavy style rather than sitting back and macroing. I think, you know, against a timing attack like that, had he been playing a more defensive style, he may have had more luck. But, I mean, he did defeat that army. It's just he decided to then go across the map and attack, and that was his error, perhaps not realizing that the
While double expanding and tech switching.
There is that too, yeah. If he committed to nothing but units, then maybe that attack would have worked. But unfortunately, it was a little bit half-hearted, as it were, and that seemed to not pay off at all for the Zerg player.
He was caught off guard too. Like, I mean, it's funny because it's like he murdered the army. He was actually up 50 supply when that fight was over. But by the time he got to NonY's base, again, because NonY is so geared in that game to just produce units, he wasn't thinking about a 4th base. He took a 4th base at the end of that, but really he wanted to do all the damage with his attack, and Suppy just kind of played into that, unfortunately. He did not read it, and it's a little bit too bad because Suppy had all the intel. He was floating through that guy's base for half the game with Overlords chock full of banelings, so it's not like he didn't know.
Notice that was phenomenal defense there by Suppy. He saves every drone, quick switch into Spore Crawlers to save them, and then the surround, and he timed that just right. He could have lost the drone there, absolutely. He didn't. So that was great tracking, great defense there by Suppy. But we are seeing again Adept opening straight into Robo here. And we've got a lot more links coming out this time around for Suppy. He's decided, you know what, I'm not going to wait this time, I'm going for it. But there are 2 sentries already in the mix.
Yeah, and I wonder if he's going to drop. We see 4 Overlords as well. More Banelings, Zerglings. One of the common strategies on this map is to just load up with a lot of Zerglings, a lot of Queens, and you drop them in there. And that's what he's going to go for. And NonY on the flip side has a lot of gateways, so the potential for his production's there. I want to say that the Robo's like, it's like, hey, you shouldn't have that, but that's actually like not that greedy at all either. This is just a super tough timing attack to hold off.
I mean, I think as well, you've got to bear in mind the map. You know, it's close by air. There's a great vulnerability to potential drop now in Legacy because you can get those drop overlords so early.
Surprise!
Yeah, hello, we brought you some friends. You want to party? Well, I don't think so. NonY is trying to get out of there as quickly as possible. It's not going to happen. There's Lings and Banelings and Queens, oh my, all over the Protoss army at the moment, decimating the probe line. There's a great place force field there. Will he be able to hold it? It looks like he might, but how much damage is going to get done here? There's already 8 probes down, more to come at this point. The Lings have broken through now. They're into the Zealots. They're trying to get a hold of those soft, meaty sentries. They're able to just do it, but that's going to be it. 8 probes down, decent amount of damage. What do you think about that investment? Did that pay off?
He held it. He's doing just fine. NonY with the staunch defense. He's about equal in worker supply. As you can see, the big thing here is this was an all-in from Suppy. Like, he's now just slamming up against the wall. He's not really going to load up Overlords. He might try it again, I guess. But he did not do the damage he needed to. Their economies are about equal. NonY is up on the tech, and his army is a lot stronger.
It really is. He held that well. It was looking a little bit grim for a while when he started to take probe losses, but a well-placed force field here, well-placed Zealot there, was able to hold it. You notice the transition through the lair, and it looks like it's going to be 2 bases. It's going to be 2 base all in at this point from the Zerg player. But he's transitioning, he's trying to get tech, but the army's already here.
And he's going to try to distract him by shifting into the base, but unfortunately, well, he's actually going to cancel out of that notion. Just let that Immortal sit in the back and deal out all his damage. Adepts in the early game can really tank damage, and that's exactly what they're doing.
They absolutely can. You might think, well, you don't want a ranged unit in the front line, but actually Adepts have the HP to manage that, and they decimate light units, and unfortunately, they're already in the base at this point. It looks like Suppy might be going in for an early tap-out, and there's a Warp Prison to reinforce and warp in as well. What exactly can Suppy even do from this position?
It's
you can't lose this base, right?
I mean, no, it's one of 2 bases. He's in a lot of trouble. Suppy does have the Heart of Alliance. He's going to see what he can try and do. But, I mean, we got it. NonY with that just brilliant defense. It looked really grim, but he was actually so patient about using his Mothership Core's Photon Overcharge. And he was really diligent about using his probes, not just to A move and then lose all of them, but rather just occupy space and block off the Zerglings.
Nice Baneling connection there, and the army is starting to thin out, but unfortunately there's not much of an army left for the Zerg player. There are still Adepts in the mix. Oh no, there's a huge warp in here from NonY. That's GG, ladies and gentlemen. 2-0 victory for the veteran Protoss. NonY still got it in 2016 after approximately 37 years of playing StarCraft. Very impressive there from NonY. He looked rock solid, like no errors, no holes in the play at all. And we see a smile there from the Protoss player. Very rare thing. Treasure that, ladies and gentlemen. Capture up the VOD. Put
Why
it on
not?
our
He
shot.
played so well. He defended that cheese.
He deserves it.
And then he had the know-how to be like, okay, there's blood in the water. I'm going to go for it. He pushed forward, and Suppy was done.
It's that killer instinct that you need as a pro gamer to realize, no, I'm not going to sit and macro up. This is the time when I could just put a knife in his heart. Let's go for it.
Oh, yeah.
And he was right. You know, whereas unfortunately, Suppy, who tried to do the same thing in game 1, he was mistaken. He didn't have what he needed to push through it.
And that's actually, not to get too deep onto the armchair quarterbacking here, but that's actually been one of NonY's strengths because he's always had the mental aspect of this game has been the blessing and the curse for him. It's been his weakest points in time, but it's also been his strongest. And you hit the nail on the head. He knew. And he knew, whereas Suppy did not. And we could kind of see the difference there. Now, it's a strong 2-0 performance. I do believe we're in the group stage, so I don't think Suppy's out just yet.
No, he's not. No.
I think he still has some life. And he, too, played okay. And that all in, by the way, it was made to look easy. But, guys, it's not. Having 4 gateways, or at least 3, and a robo producing an Immortal at that time is not common. We're going to go kind of the decisive moment here. Banelings are getting morphed in from our Zerg player.
Kind of the last gasp.
It's a little
really,
bit of a formality.
Yeah. It is, unfortunately. You know, an incredible Baneling connection might have switched this around. The problem is the Adepts got up there already, and they canceled 2 of the Banelings, 3 in fact, before they even morphed in. Then they crash into the front line of Adepts. They get a few of them, but with those 3 or 4 Banelings not being in that mix, they couldn't kill the front line, and that was that.
That will do it. Now, NonY is, by the way, I wanted to mention this almost, just put it out there. I believe he's actually a Texan native, so if you guys are unfamiliar with these guys, go ahead and cheer for him. He did go to Duke University, so hopefully you guys can forgive him for that at least. But I believe he's a Texan native. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And I think we can actually even find that out because we're going to go to the interview, if I'm not mistaken, with Chobra and young Tyler Washowski.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. In fact, congratulations, and that will be my first question. I already know the answer, but Texan native, yes, no?
Yeah, well, technically born in Florida, and then I moved to Texas for middle school and high school, so I kind of feel Texan, yeah.
Okay, I mean, so does it feel good, playing in Texas, winning your first game on the stage right now? Or is it like, I mean, it's a tournament is a tournament, Texas or not, do you have that pride?
I feel a little pride. It's early in the tournament, but so I can't get too excited, but it was a pleasant surprise to hear I was having a stage match, and it was pretty fun.
All right, well, that's fair enough. It is pretty early. Well, I was going to ask you because, the commentators were talking about how, everyone's talking about how Austin's food is great and whatnot, but obviously you're kind of from the area, so maybe you can just vouch for that. I mean, do you really think Austin's food is that great? Because everyone touts, like, food, music, Austin, best place to have an event.
Yeah, definitely. The barbecue, the Tex-Mex, I love it. I just ate Tex-Mex for lunch. I had Tex-Mex, a taco that had, like, smoked brisket in it, so, like, I'm combining it, getting the best of both worlds. It was great.
All right, sounds great, man. Well, like we said, still early on in the tournament, but it was great to see you on stage. Congratulations on your win, but many more to go, so best of luck, guys, as you move forward. We'll be back after a short break with another match here in this group stage number 2.
Somewhere you're looking down, I could feel your heartbeat. I could feel it somewhere you're looking down. 'Cause it's you I'm loving, and it's you that I wanna breathe. And